Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sure I can hear myself. I hope you can too. Right, I should probably point out to start with that I'm coming at this issue of missing layer from the point of view as an observer rather than an expert. I'm not an IT expert, and I'm certainly not a lawyer, but I am a GI person who has been sort of around these sorts of issues for a number of years and can see that there are obstacles in the way to us achieving what we want to from geographic information. So that's the perspective. I'm not an expert. All the experts are actually lined up on the table on my right here, and you can ask your detailed questions of them later. So on the menu today we've got, first of all, I want to just look at what the problem is and why it's a problem. Then we're going to look at the meat in the sandwich, which is the missing layer. I want to tackle what I think we can do about it, and then give you all a call for action. So don't doze off, because I will be asking you to do things by the end of the session. Inspire, it's a vision, isn't it? It's got aspirations. We all have visions of interoperable data, interoperable services. We see this better world out there where we can actually get our data together, make it do what we want to do, and present us with better answers to environmental questions. That is what we're striving for, all of us at this conference and wider. And we've been so busy, haven't we? We've been really busy over the last 10 years. We've gone around, we've produced legislation, we've produced guidance, we've had numerous discussions, we'd have a conference every year. We've been really, really active. But has it gotten us anywhere closer to our vision yet? I would suggest there's still something standing in the way between us and our vision. I'm sorry if you can't read the bottom line of that text, the picture. It says, to redeem your wishes, fill out all required fields, including username and password. So we have a problem, don't we? Wherever we turn, there are services that have a need to be protected in some way and prevent access to certain classes or types or roles of people. And, well, who's saying this? Well, lots of people are saying this. The Commission put up an EU geoportal, and they harvested from us all our service metadata, and then they went round and they looked at all the view services we'd put up. Now, they didn't get access to all of them, not all because of this reason. Some, I'm sure the server was down, and there were other issues, but there is no doubt that some of them were not accessible because of this. At a UK level, we're seeing exactly the same. We have a government data portal called data.gov.uk, which we have extended such that it will take Inspire metadata and in general GI metadata. And we have a preview service where we can preview web map services. But once again, because we can only preview open access services, there are many that we cannot actually see on data.gov.uk. And at my own organisational level, we have public sector customers all over Great Britain who are using our data and then wanting to put things they derive from that into their own web services in order to comply with Inspire legislation. Now, we, like other data providers, if that happens, we expect an end-user license for the user of that data to be signed, which puts an obligation on the customer to actually have a mechanism of imposing that license. Once again, we have to have that layer between the provider and the customer. So, we have a problem. Why? Well, I think there's actually several reasons we've got this problem, but the three main ones that we quote most are there's personal data in there. Can't do anything because I've got to protect personal information. There's other legislation relating to that. We all know that. We have to look after personal data. Maybe there's secure data. Data security is defence-related data security is one of the reasons that we can prevent access or restrict access under Inspire. And of course, there's license rights. There's the need to look at what rights which people are allowed to have. And now within Inspire, I suspect that those two are relatively small compared to this one. This is, I think, is the larger of the three. Did we forget something? Oh dear, I forgot that we might have to protect or license rights to people. Well, I don't think we did forget anything. Do you remember this? This was the architecture diagram that we used to use. I haven't seen this one used for a while, actually, but this is the one that used to be shown at meetings of Inspire. And in there, for those who can't see from the back, is the rights management layer. So there it was in the Inspire architecture when we first were talking about it. But we didn't build it. Why not? Well, I've asked several people why we didn't build this layer, and I've got several answers. And they range from, well, we didn't think we needed it, well, we don't think we will need it. That coming from people who think there will be no need for it in future. If I asked technical people, they said, well, it's actually quite tricky, or there's no standards, or there's too many standards and we don't know which one to pick. Others would say, who are coming perhaps from the e-government side, well, it's not a geo problem, it's a much broader problem, so we'll get the problem solved over there, and then we'll go and adopt it. And then, speaking from a drafting team that has both lawyers and technical people in it, getting the two to talk together is quite a challenge. And in fact, I think Kathleen referred to that this morning. Getting lawyers to talk to technical people to make business processes work is a challenge. But one thing that does actually seem to be coming through over and over again is that we do need a step change to make it happen. We seem to have to take that leap into a new way of running things. So, Houston, we have a problem. I really believe that unless we get the wheels back on this vehicle, we're not going to go anywhere with Inspire. So we need to get it off the blocks and move on. But why? I mean, I'm challenged quite frequently on whether it's really necessary. Well, I think it is necessary, and these are some of the reasons. Obviously, the first three we've already tackled. Unlicensed use. That often goes hand in hand with commercial use and competition law and the need to actually restrict things to areas where people have actually paid money to do it, as against areas where they haven't. Performance management. Anyone who runs a service knows that they actually want to have some sort of degree of control over who's doing what with their services. That may only be a method, a means of knowing, which IP address things are coming from. It might be simple as that. And to allow publishers and users to communicate. Any data publisher worth their salt actually wants to have an idea of what's being done with the data they publish and have a communication with their users to get feedback, to tell them about updates. So you have to have that linkage between the two. And another one that was said to me actually after over coffee time was about traceability. Being able to trace things down chain services to know where it's got to at the other end is legally quite an important question. So it is important. What can we do? Moving on to what we can do. We could do nothing, but that would involve ignoring a lot of high-value data sets, which are very useful and could add value to Inspire. It would allow point solutions to develop. Well, point solutions already are developing. My own organisation has a means of allowing access to our web map service for those who have a username and password. It's our solution. Northern Ireland has a different solution, or is shortly to have a different solution. So if you want a web map service for the UK, and you want to take one from us and one from Northern Ireland, it's not interoperable. You can't do it using the same approach. And what's going on in the bigger non-geo world? I think if we ignore it, we ignore that as well. So, probably not a good idea. So, moving on to let's doing something. There's three things I think we should be doing. The first one is to focus on what's important. There's a mass of stuff, and we need to pick out what we can actually do something about. Now, rights management is about managing access and use. I'm going to actually tackle use management. On the use management side, there's lots going on in terms of licensing, harmonizing licenses, coming up with fewer of them, trying to reduce the complexity. We talked a bit about that both on yesterday and earlier this afternoon. A lot of that is actually fairly passive. It's about setting out what the license rights are, but it's not about actually making them happen in any way. And I think that sort of use management is way down the track, and we should really not even consider that at the moment. It's passive, but what we can do is start focusing on how to translate those licenses into something machines understand, which is rights expression languages, and that's an area we do need to focus on. Access management is a different thing. They're related, of course, but it is a different thing. This is about identifying who you are, where you're from, and what rights you have, which obviously relates to the rights expression language. Now, in that world, there is masses going on, all sorts of things going on in the wider non-geo world on access management, ID management. And that's what I think we should focus on now. Get the access management right, look at rights expression languages, and then look at use management a bit further on down the line. Oops. said earlier, there's an awful lot going on out there. I suppose I've been even looking into this sort of issue for the last, 2 or 3 years, and more in the last year or so, and I've been absolutely staggered how much activity there is actually out there on this. Not just in the geo world, but in the wider geo world. There are projects going on, coming up results, there's trials going on in other member states, there's masses going on. There's almost too much, in some ways, to be able to identify what it is we should be doing. But it does raise the question, of course, with all this going on, why have we still got a missing layer? And I think the answer is this. We haven't had any leadership to take us forward in this area. It's not an area that went into the Inspire Directive, so there's been no remit to put it into regulations or do anything in the member states. Now, we've recently had a questionnaire around the member states from the Commission about what sort of authentication and e-commerce we use. I actually would hope this is a sign of increasing interest on the part of the Commission, and we might have a comment on this later, that they are now going to perhaps stake up and take a leadership role in this. I appreciate there's nothing in the Inspire Directive about it, but that doesn't mean to say that action can't be taken in a guidance or leadership role. In the non-geo world, it's the e-government agenda that's setting the pace here, setting the context of how you identify people, identity management. That's where we should be also looking and linking into that to see what leadership is going on there. And finally, the standards agencies appear to have a relatively low level of activity in this at the moment, from what I can see, particularly in the geo side of the standards. But we do need leadership in all these 3 areas to actually progress. And the third thing we can do is do something instead of talk about it. We've been talking about it for a long time. We've been talking about it quite a lot at this conference, or perhaps I have. Anyway. Just by way of example, and I'm not in any way saying we're ahead of the pack here, in the UK we've taken the approach that we've set up a business interoperability working group. We've had a mass of technical working groups, and we've now got a business interoperability one looking at rights management, at licensing and access management, and what we can actually do to make it work in UK, at least, obviously not completely in isolation from the rest of Europe. And our first stage has been to commission a piece of work to look at the state of play across rights management, non-geo and geo, and across the world, and then come up with some practical options. And we're in the middle of that at the moment, so I'm not able to tell you what the answer is, but we're certainly hoping to find one. Oops. I know other things are going on in member states, having talked to people both outside the conference and within the conference. There's experiments going on in all sorts of areas. What we need, I believe, is some sort of forum to bring that together. If we're not getting a lead from the top, we need to take it from the member state level and get ourselves together and talk about how to do it best for us in Europe. I mentioned the hope that we can see some leadership coming from the Commission. And then finally, I would, on this list, I would encourage everybody to actually get involved and do things. There's been, just as a little example, in the last week, or last week or so, I saw a call to look at identity federations, as I recall. And this is just one example of areas where we can start getting our hands dirty and trying things out. So, I firmly believe this is crunch point for Inspire. If we don't sort this out, we're not going to achieve the benefits that we could do out of Inspire and out of the geographic information. And that, after all, is what we all wanted, wasn't it? Isn't that what the vision was about? So I just want to finish with a call for action. I want you to, everybody, accept and tell everybody that they know that this issue is not going to go away. And if someone tells you that open data will solve everything, tell them it won't. Because even open data has a license attached to it. This is just the start. View services are raising this problem because we're getting into the services world. Download services is going to make it an awful lot worse. There is a lot more value travelling down those services when it comes to download, and it's going to raise this issue much higher up everybody's agenda. We need some leadership. Anyone in a position to prompt anyone to take leadership on this issue, please do so. We will continue to look at harmonising licenses. There are some initiatives in terms of harmony. We haven't got a pretty tune, but we've got the odd chord, I think. We're seeing some of those happening. But what needs to happen there is we need to move it into rights expression languages. We need to explore what's going on in the big wide world. There's lots out there, and just get on with it, quite honestly. Try it and start. So my watchwords, please remember them. Let's get a standard going. Let's not be geo-specific. Be flexible. Things have got to move into the future. And let's just do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these very interesting presentations. Are there quickly any questions from the audience? I guess there is a microphone going around. Yeah, one question from Robin, right?
Just a quick question, Claire. Thanks very much. Very clear presentation. I'm wondering how much of this it's an organisational issue. We've talked quite a lot about these kind of things in general, but I really mean, does each organisation really know where they stand? You can't hear me. I'm going to come and tell you over here because I think this might help. That way they can hear and you can hear. What I said was, I think it's an organisational issue, okay, but each organisation maybe doesn't know what they're doing themselves. It's a local authority, they're dealing with lots of things, e-government's a big part of what they're doing, or maybe a big part of what they're doing, and then they don't know, okay, there's the GI part, but maybe they have to develop their own policy as an organisation to decide how they're going to engage and share data. So, does anybody know where organisations stand in general? Take the UK as an example. Do we know how local authorities are addressing that kind of issue in general? Have they got policies in place, etc.? That works.
Good. Did everybody hear the question? I did. Fortunately. So, do local authorities, taking UK as an example, no? I think the answer is probably not. A lot of authorities know that they have obligations under Inspire to deliver services where they are the holder of Inspire data. How they do it in a way such that the service is protected or only delivered to those who have the rights to have it, they don't know. And a lot of those public authorities and local authorities are indeed our customers at Ordnance Survey and are coming and asking us. And to be honest, we don't know either, because we also have the same issues, as does every other public authority in this room, as does the European Commission. So I think the local authority level is no different to anyone else in seeing that there are many options out there. Nobody is giving them a guide to, that's the standard we need to follow, or that's the route we need to go. And that's what we need to pick up on. Does that in any way answer the question?
Okay, we can take another questions. Yeah.
Is that here? Yeah. Eric Blassenheim, I'm from Pitney Bowes, MapInfo, US. I don't have the same needs, obviously not just Euro-specific. I was wondering, though, the issues that you're talking about are not just really Inspire issues. They're issues around all these services. We have a connection with OGC. It just seems like it's the kind of thing that, at least on the aspect of the technical issues, maybe understanding what's special about geospatial, we could sort of work together to try to move that forward in a way that, you know, is universal as well. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about that, or is there just more that I don't know about Inspire that makes that impractical?
I think I'm going to check with you here that you were asking about that it was not an Inspire issue and what's special about geospatial in relation to all this.
The Inspire community here could be working with whatever organizations, OGC for example, to come up with what is it that we really need about these kinds of services in this regard, and come up with a common need set, and then working through developing a framework that doesn't invent new security standards, because there's lots of them, as you say, and trying to move forward that way rather than maybe developing something that is Inspire specific, but I don't consider myself super knowledgeable on maybe what other issues there are in the Euro community that would make that impractical.
Right. I think I heard.
Okay. Come up there.
It's really hard, I'm sorry. We keep saying over and over again, it's really hard to hear what's going on out there. But
I'll make it really terse. Is there any reason why Inspire, working with a group like OGC, couldn't come up with the requirements of geospatial information and structure?
Yes. No.
Okay. 10 minutes to the question.
No, it isn't just me.
Okay, thank you very much. So